This is one of the biggest mistakes that the installers have when they call for service, when they have trouble with commissioning process. So what we're doing today is going to be a retrofit. We're going to retrofit a battery system into an existing solar system. So this is a standalone grid-tied solar system with a Sunny Boy by SMA inverter. It's a 10 kilowatt system, 25 400 watt phono solar panels with a 7.7 Sunny Boy. We already had a solar permit pulled on this property, so we're pulling a second permit as an addition of a battery. And so we've actually had a lot of customer add a battery to an existing grid-tied solar system. And oftentimes people will ask whether it's actually important to add a permit when you add a battery system to an existing solar system. And it's kind of a hit or miss, so you're gonna have to make a decision for yourself. Here's what I say when that happens. You wanna make sure that your solar system and your house is insured, because those are battery systems. So in case, something happens, the house, is flooded, whatever, you want to make sure that your investment is protected. And that's why I usually say that when you're adding something to your home, you want to make sure that you pull permits, etc. when you do things like that. So in this case, we are pulling permits. Now, because we're doing that, it is making things a little bit more complicated, because when we start adding batteries to houses, and we are adding them into the garage in this case today, inspectors are getting more and more difficult to work with. Now, it is for a good reason. So what they're doing now more and more is they're starting to request things such as safety bollards to make sure that you do not drive into your battery inside your garage. Now, they're also starting to request heat detectors, smoke alarms to be added. Oftentimes, if your smoke detecting system is not connected properly in your house, they'll actually make sure that you upgrade your whole home smoke detecting system. So it might get a little bit more expensive when you do that. However, it is a safety precaution, so you might want to be protected in that case. So just keep that in mind. Now, a lot of people decide to put the batteries on the outside wall of the house, which is absolutely and totally okay. Majority of the batteries, such as Tesla, EP Cube, Enphase, Franklin, all those batteries are 100% outdoor rated. EP Cube is actually even better because it has that outdoor 4X rating, which we absolutely could have put it on the outside. In this case, I really want to do a lot more testing, which is going to just make it a little bit more convenient to have it inside the garage. Hence, we're putting it on the inside. Right, so what we have right here is actually a very young Sunny Boy AC coupled grid-tied solar system with no battery, and it's actually very young. It's only 2 years old. So what we could have done with this EP Cube system is two things. We could have actually left this Sunny Boy inverter and AC coupled the battery system to it, or two, what we're doing is remove the Sunny Boy inverter and DC couple the battery system. So we're gonna put the panels, DC couple them into the hybrid inverter and then into the battery. And what that makes this system is just a little bit more powerful than leaving the AC coupled solar into the battery. So one of the biggest benefits of the modular design or the stackable designs of these batteries is the fact that the battery itself is pretty light. So the battery is about 70 pounds. So you can see that I myself can lift it. Now, obviously, I'm not going to be the one installing it, but I can walk with it, as you can see. Now, yeah, clearly I'm not going to be installing it. I'm going to have my guys do it, but I could. So again, it just benefits you because you don't need 4 guys or 5 guys, or you don't need that heavy, expensive equipment to buy in order to install like a 300 or a 400 pound battery, because this is only 70 pounds. So what we have here, the first box, the biggest box, is our gateway. This is the brain of the operation. So I'm gonna show you what we have here. Come on, Jenny, you can help me lift this up. So this is gonna be our biggest box, and this box is actually, I think, the lightest out of all of them. This is gonna be your transfer switch. So if you're doing a whole home backup, this is gonna go after your meter, after your emergency disconnect. This is what it looks like. Then what we're gonna have is, after this, you're gonna connect your hybrid inverter. And I think this one is the one that is open already. Here you go. So the first part is where we have our hybrid inverter, and this is what connects to our gateway. And we can have multiple hybrid inverters connected to the gateway. So depending on how big your system is, you can have multiple inverters connected. So right here, I have a 10 kilowatt system. Like I said, I had a 7.7 Sunny Boy inverters outside. So we're replacing that 7.7 with this 7.6 Hybrid EP Cube Inverter, and we're gonna put the maximum 6 stacks of 3.3 batteries that are right there to it. All right, so we had actually 2 options to do this, right? We could have done a whole home backup or what's called a critical load system with like a critical loads panel. I decided we're gonna do a whole home backup. Now, there is a little bit of a caveat with this because this inverter or one inverter isn't really capable of supporting an AC unit in Texas. So now it's totally different in California. It's totally different in Florida, different states, different situations, right? In Texas, our AC units are cranking up like 5, 6, 7 kilowatts to just like surge capacity that you need to just start that AC unit. So even though we're doing a whole home backup, this system might not be able to start it right away. So, but the reason why I'm doing it is because I want to have the ability to pick and choose the breakers that I want to have available to me in a power outage situation. So let's say in the middle of the summer or in the middle of the winter, there's a power outage. The system might not be able to turn on right away, but then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come in here, I'm gonna turn off my AC unit, and then I'm gonna restart the system, and then I can be able to, you know, pick and choose what I wanna back up, and then I can have a prolonged battery capacity to go through the power outage. Now, another reason why I really want to do a whole home backup is because ultimately I want to add a second hybrid inverter right next to it. And ultimately I want to split my 6 stacks into probably like 4 and 4 stacks, because then I'm going to have 60 amp of power through or like amp capacity to then be able to start an AC in the summer. And then I want to add some more solar panels on the roof, and then I'll have a true whole home backup. So I'm basically setting myself up for success in the future by doing whole home from the get-go so that I can do that in the future.
When mounting batteries, it's absolutely essential to find studs, so make sure to use a stud finder.
And then another thing that comes in the box is actually a wall mount template, so which makes it very easy for people that want to use it. You can basically put it on, you know, from the bottom. There is actually tape on it already, so you just, you know, peel it off and, you know, you level it out, and then you know exactly where to screw. The thing about it is most installers don't really use it. I find my guys usually just start from the bottom and work their way up. However, if you want to, you can use the template. With this system, you can either floor mounted or wall mounted. So when you buy this from a distributor, you just want to make sure that you buy the correct kit so that when you do start the installation, you don't find yourself having the wrong kit.
When stacking the batteries, the very first thing is to make sure that the base is flush and leveled. Because otherwise, all the other batteries you're going to put on top are going to be leaning forward and not making good connections.
All right, so as we go, well, after your second battery, what you want to do is you want to test voltage to make sure the batteries are good. So what we're going to do is we're going to put, the first one is positive, the second one's negative. So we're just doing it on the side right here with your meter. Let's see, and yes, so as you see, it's 78.7, which is 2 batteries. Both are, or each one is about 30, which adds up. So this is perfect. So that's good. So we're going with the next one. We're going to cover this up.
So we did all the brackets, and then after you add the brackets, just make sure to secure the connection with some plastic or whatever, just to make sure that when you drill the holes, no debris gets into the connections.
This ahead of time just makes your job a little bit easier and allows for you to basically do this job by 1 or 2 people.
All right, now that we have 3 batteries, we're gonna test voltage.
Put it back, put it back.
All right, and we have 118, which is perfect. All right, let's go with the 4th one.
Now a quick disclaimer, OSHA rules, anything over 50 pounds should have 2 people lift it up, just like at the airport.
Okay, so there's a connector at the very bottom, which I'm going to show you in a second. You want to make sure that it stays inside. You can see it right here. So you want to just push it in, and then you want to take the top off. That way you have an extra space. Yeah, you guys can start lifting it up. So you want to have extra space to lift it, because when you have that 6-pack, it gets high. It gets more difficult. There we go. It gets more difficult to lift.
And then you can just remove the cover so you have easier placement for your hands. Once the hybrid inverter is stacked on the batteries, make sure that the fuse is pulled out. You're going to push it in when you do the final commissioning and connect the battery with the hybrid inverter.
Probably 100% of installers are guilty of is not reading the manual. And to be honest with you, we did not even pull it up. Like, I honestly don't even know where it's at. It's probably in the box still. When we started installing it, we missed one of the parts, which basically levels out the battery, which added at least an extra hour to our thing. So read your manual. Okay, you probably won't even read your manual, but remember to add part behind the first bracket when you are wall mounting this battery.
The smart gateway is the lightest piece out of all the equipment and can be mounted by just one person. Obviously, 2 is always best. As you can see, the power will be supplied from the grid to the smart gateway grid terminals. There you can see also the neutral. There are the ground terminals behind the load side wires, and those load wires will feed the main service panel or the critical load panel, your emergency panel, depending on the setup that you're going to get.
This is the hybrid inverter. This is the main component. This is where the magic happens. This is where the DC is converted to AC into the house, or DC to DC into the battery, because this is a hybrid inverter. Also, because this is the main component of the system, if there's ever any issues, most likely this is where it's going to happen. Hopefully not many issues though.
As you can see now, the fuse is open and still in the fuse holder. This is going to be your final step before turning on the system and doing the commissioning. Also, before you do the commissioning, you want to confirm your wiring is correct from AC to DC to communication cables. Also, during the commissioning steps in the app, it'll also have you confirm that the wires are correct. So if you're unsure of the wiring, just refer to the steps in the commissioning process on the app itself. There is a guide there that will be very helpful. One thing I wanted to note here is that the system that I got had an AP Smart Rapid Shutdown built into it, but I already have pre-existing Tigo CCA, so we'll be using that instead.
There are nice covers that go on the side of the batteries, but please do not put them on top until you're completely done with commissioning as well, because there's those barcodes and there are codes on the side that you're going to have to scan when doing the commissioning.
Also, the CAN bus wire for communication is rated for 300 volts. This means that it needs to be ran with the AC wire and not the DC wire per code.
Pushing in the fuse, and let's get started with commissioning.
Alright, so you'll want to confirm all your wiring here. You will click through those few checks, so just properly follow the steps. Now, as far as the button on the smart gateway and on the hybrid, flushed is off for smart gateway button and pushed in is on.
Make sure that these stay off as well.
Now, the first step is going to be the device serial numbers and
be scanning of the smart gateway. In our case, it's located on the outside, so let's go and take a look at that. And those codes are actually located on the left side of the smart gateway and the hybrid, and it goes super, super fast.
Oh, that was quick. Oh my gosh. EP Cube name.
Next, you're going to put in your EP Cube system name, and in most installers' cases, this is going to be your customer first and last name, as well as the location.
Before turning on the system and commissioning, you also want to make sure that your phases from AC side are not crossed. So L1 with L1, L2 with L2. What happens if you cross the phases when an outage happens, it can actually fail to transfer or delay the transfer, which means possibly another site visit is needed to correct the issue. This happens because if one load is unbalanced on L1 and there's no load on L2, it will cause the system to basically fail transfer and then shut down due to those unbalanced load. Then the next step is obviously going to be connecting it to Bluetooth, then Wi-Fi. Just make sure you have a reliable internet connection. You want to make sure that you have available 2.4 gigahertz internet connection and not a 5G, because if it is 5G, it's going to keep dropping the connection. Before the installation, you definitely want to prepare best and get the homeowner's Wi-Fi information. Then you also want to connect your own phone to that Wi-Fi. That way, when you're clicking through the app, it's going to connect you to the Wi-Fi. The name is going to already populate. You'll just have to re-enter the password. Now, you also want to have, or you need to have, the homeowner's email address for their account, and you should instruct them to download the app and sign up for the app. So that way, when you're done commissioning, they already have the account created. So after confirming your wiring is correct, as the app states, you will need to verify you have power at the hybrid and the smart gateway. A very common mistake is people think they have power because the breaker to the hybrid is on, but they're unaware that there is an AC disconnect in between the breaker and the hybrid inverter. That's probably off and stopping the power flow to the inverter itself. So it's just good practice to always confirm with the voltmeter that there's proper voltage at each piece of equipment before continuing commissioning.
This is one of the biggest mistakes that the installers have when they call for service, when they have trouble with commissioning process, is that they call in, they are going through like 3 hours of commissioning, and then they find out that they don't have power to the EP Cube inverter. So let's keep going. Another very important tip is to keep the phone close to the unit while your updates are happening. A lot of people just walk away and then the update gets disrupted and then you have to start over again. All right, this is where if you have multiple hybrids and multiple batteries, you would hit plus and just add your extra inverters. But we're gonna keep going. All right, please turn on the first hybrid breaker and turn off other breakers. All right. And we're gonna update the first hybrid. All right, this is like the most nice part of the whole installation. This is the end of it. We're done with all the hard work and now we can just sit and relax, and hopefully it will take only 40 to 50 minutes. So here's a cool tip for installers. I would say get your technicians, installers, iPads so that they can do all those commissionings on the iPads, and then they can actually work on their phones or computers while they do this, because ultimately you really shouldn't be using your phone if you do not want to disrupt the commissioning process. Also, if you have a second hybrid inverter, you have to go through the first update, which is going to take, we're already at 10%, but which is going to take, let's say, 40 minutes. And then if we had another hybrid, it would take another 40 minutes. So if you have multiple units, you're going to have your employee working, multiple hours. I just think of it in numbers, because you pay your employees for the time that they spend working those systems. So yeah, just things to think about. And also make sure to have a phone charger with you, because just like with an iPhone update, you always do them at night when your phone is charging. You want to make sure that your phone is at full charge when this is happening. All right, it is completed. It took 36 minutes, so less than what they said. All right, we're gonna go next. Please confirm that all hybrid breakers are turned on, and they are.
During the updating process, as you can see, the Bluetooth actually dropped, so now I just have to reconnect the Bluetooth, but it does not stop the actual update from happening. Just again, keep your phone close to the actual device. Now, after all the updating is done, this is when you're going to configure each piece of equipment on site. So your hybrids, your gateway. This is also when you're going to determine whether you want partial home backup or whole home backup, if you're using exporting or not, depending on where you live and what utility setup you have. This is also where you're going to set up your export power. In my case, I don't have a problem exporting power to the grid, so I'm just going to set up my export power to 100%. So if I'm not home, I can basically export everything back to the grid.
All right, success.
If you do not have an e-stop, make sure to configure it to none. That way it doesn't think that there is an e-stop and basically shut everything down. Now, if you do have one, obviously configure it. And now for the fun part, we're going to get to scanning all of our batteries and everything. And make sure to do all the scanning all the way from the top to the bottom. So starting with your hybrid all the way down to the last battery in the base. And this is a portion when you can now upload photos, so your smart gateway photos, hybrid wiring photos, front overview, side overview, etc. Very easy way for EP Cube to catch any mistakes that happen during installation.
I don't know if other battery companies require this, but this is really cool.
Now that we were done with commissioning, you just click on the home button and you'll be able to see your fully commissioned device. You will also notice that on the very top left corner, there is system is in an off state. This is because the smart gateway is still turned off. And so your next step is going to be turning both the inverter as well as the smart gateway on. And here you can see the total outside look of the installation. You can see our added emergency disconnect, the solar disconnect, and the smart gateway outside. So on the side, we have that bright light, solid light. That means the system is in on-grid mode. If it's dim light, then it means we're off-grid. And then if it's blinking, there might be some issues. Also, as you can see on my app, it shows that the system is in its fault. But just wait a little bit because the light is solid. That means everything is good. So just wait for that data to be actually sent, from your inverter to the EP Cube servers and back to your app. And as you can see right now, it shows normal operation, so everything's good.
So we're gonna close this up.
All right, so after everything is done, now the best thing to do is put the system in a backup mode to make sure that the battery charges up over 50%, and then obviously perform a test, an outage test to make sure that everything works properly. As an installer, the worst thing you can do is basically leave site without actually testing the system's backup mode, and then having to come back because something was not done properly. Testing the battery, making sure that it can cover all the loads is super, super important because oftentimes we're designing battery systems are not properly designed to the loads that they're supposed to cover. And again, the last thing you want to do is sell someone a battery system and then literally them not be able to have that battery operate when the grid is down.
We're done. I really do like the way this looks. Like, I think it's very sturdy. I think it's very pretty. I really like the color. I do like the light on the side. It doesn't have to have a light. I mean, who cares about the light in the garage? I do like the looks. So I'm very happy with it. Now just make sure to stay tuned and subscribe to the channel to make sure that we can test this out. And we're gonna be testing it in all kinds of modes. We're gonna do backup modes. We're gonna try to run AC on this. We're gonna to run everything in the house, see how long this lasts. We have a lot to test, okay? We have a lot in this house. Make sure to subscribe to the channel to watch that video.